The Commons was left reeling today as Jewish MP Andrew Percy gave a moving speech reminding us of the fear that British Jews are currently living under.
For months I've been standing up here talking about the people on our streets, demanding death to Jews, demanding jihad, demanding intifadas, as the police stand by and allow that to happen. Last night, a genocidal call for from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, was projected onto this building. That message says no Jew is welcome in the state of Israel or in that land.
And here is the projection that Percy mentioned, if you're watching us on TV or online, lighting up the home of British democracy with the infamous phrase, from the river to the sea. Let me remind you that since Hamas's invasion of Israel back in October, anti-Semitic abuse has risen a shocking 589%. Earlier today, I caught up with Andrew Percy himself to find out what Parliament can do to stand up to extremism. That Parliament has caved into Islamist extremism.
I think to a certain extent, yes, and also to hard left extremism. So there are members of the House of Commons at the moment who have said to me they're not prepared to vote as they would like to on this issue because they fear the retribution, they fear the retaliation, and they fear the threats that are coming into them. And we can't have a situation where, in a democracy, democratically elected, representatives are not able to vote as they wish for fear of violence. I mean, it's completely unacceptable. So yes, we have caved.
You made an incredibly strong point in the House of Commons earlier today. I just wonder whether or not it's fair to say that the Jewish community is kind of like the canary in the coal mine, a little bit, actually. And at the moment, that canary's gasping for air, trying to warn us about the problems that are facing us.
Yeah, I mean, that is true, right? I mean, the problem is, if we allow this behaviour to continue, it's not just going to be on this issue, it'll be the next issue, and it'll be another issue, it'll be a different group who will be targeted.
Do you think Sir Keir Starmer was maybe saved from being confronted by the reality of what his own ideology has created last night with what Lindsay Hoyle did?
Well, I think it was incredibly unhelpful what he did yesterday. It put Conservative MPs in particular at extra risk. So we were told it was to protect members of Parliament's safety, but it appears that the safety of some MPs is more important than others, because all it did was throw us on the government benches completely under the bus. And I think Sir Keir Starmer should reflect on that. But he should also reflect on the fact that what some of his MPs have been saying on this subject, he should reflect about how some of his MPs have been attending some of these marches, speaking at these marches, where there is open Jew hate, and those members are still sitting there on his benches.
Yeah, and for you personally, how bad is this? What kind of examples have you got of yourself and others who are facing up to this now? I
mean, the problem you have on this issue is lots of us don't like to talk about what comes our way, because when you talk about it, more of it comes your way. But, my stuff I get has, because I've been very vocal on this, I get called a Zionist. I get told I should leave the country, pack my bags, people telling me I should be dragged into the streets and flogged, somebody telling me I don't have any children but telling me that they hope that bad things happen to my children, that other acts of violence should be committed. And that's happening to MPs, and some MPs have had it even worse than I have. Lots of, particularly female MPs get it particularly badly, and, but it's grim stuff, and it's and that is, as I say, it's affecting how people perform their duties as members of Parliament. Democracy cannot sustain this. If we'd had a vote yesterday, it wouldn't actually have been reflective of the will of the House of Commons, because people would have stayed away from the vote, or in some cases voted against their own personal views and consciences, just to get these people off their backs.
That's insane.
It's completely and utterly mad, but we've known about it, and it's been happening for a while now, and it's only going to get worse. And we're seeing it across, Western democracies. This is inconsistent with democracy, the behaviour we're seeing it. But these people are given succor, right? Because when they're allowed week after week to take to the streets of London, and despite the fact that week after week, members of the Jewish community and others point out the signs that are they point out that intifada is continued to be allowed, the calls for jihad, the call for people to open support for the Houthis. This emboldens these people to then take to social media, to their email accounts to send us all sorts of abuse, because they see it's acceptable. So it's not being stopped. Of course, it's only going to get worse.
I was going to say, do you think this is going to be a watershed moment? But how many watershed moments can we have? David Amos is the obvious example. Mike Freer recently, again, and, both of those things ended up being contorted to be about online hate and what, as opposed to the real issue.
Yeah, well, this is the problem that, we've had lots of warnings about this. We've seen this on other issues where we've, had, you've had head teachers who've had to go into hiding, you've had, schools targeted, and as I say, it's this strange mix of individuals and ideologies. And, we know it's happening and everybody calls out, and this is my frustration in the Commons today. We can all keep saying it's not acceptable. We can all keep saying, oh, isn't it awful? And we mustn't allow this to happen. But at the end of the day, MPs have to go home, or they're in London and they leave their families at home, and they have to go to their houses where they are unprotected. We don't have police officers on our front doors, and you have to think as you're getting into your bed at night, it's easy to figure out where an MP lives, what's going to happen to me.
So Lindsay Hoyle has been very vocal today, as he was last night as well, saying, look, he felt as though he had the best intentions for MPs and that he feared threats. OK, so realistically, what was he supposed to have done? If he's been told he'll have blood on his hands here, what should he have done, do you think?
So I think, look, I like Lindsay. Lindsay's been personally very good to me over the years, and I genuinely believe he cares about I know he believes and cares about the welfare of members of Parliament, and he doubtless, does care about the threats that Labour MPs have faced, just as all of us have faced. What was unacceptable was these reports of pressure being put on him, and it's helped get Keir Starmer out of a particular bind with his own party. But as I've said, I'm sure even if we take those threats of whether he'd have a job or not in the future out of it, even if the intention was to protect members of Parliament, sadly the decision threw other members of Parliament completely under the bus.
We currently have members of Parliament voting against their own free will because they are scared from a radical mob.
Yep.
We potentially have the Leader of the Opposition exerting pressure onto the Speaker of the House of Commons in order to try to mask certain divisions within his own party. And this problem, you think, is going to get worse before it gets better?
Yes, I don't see how it doesn't, because, and that's exactly what's happening. You have members of Parliament who wouldn't have turned up to the vote yesterday purely because they were scared of what would happen if they voted against particular motions and amendments that were down. Democracy can't survive that. We cannot survive that. And, we're all condemning it and everybody's saying it's wrong, but actually we have to do something to prevent it more than words.
Well, thank you very much to Andrew Percy MP, who is incredibly brave for speaking out about all of this in such frank terms. It's important to say, obviously, that Sir Keir Starmer and Lindsay Hoyle both deny the idea that there was any kind of deal that took place or that there was any leaning on anybody. But